into growth. Emilee Weaver has been a professional horticulturalist for 25 years in 5 different states in the US. 15 of those years have been spent as a horticultural therapist and consultant. Stemming from a formalised education in social work, years of professional horticultural experience, and a horticultural therapist certificate. She has developed and managed numerous HT programs, most of which centre on mental health and the development of psychosocial and vocational skills. She currently serves as a therapeutic horticulture program manager at the North Carolina Botanical Gardens, providing direct services to community organisations and managing the on-site and 100% online therapeutic horticulture certificate program offered by the garden. She co-authored the HT textbook, The Profession and Practice of Horticultural Therapy, which was published in 2019. She is enthusiastic about supporting a thriving national and international HT community in the US and beyond. So I'll now hand you over to Emilee, who's going to share her screen and start our presentation.
All right. Well, thank you for that warm welcome, Lauren. I appreciate it. And thank you for everyone who joined this seminar. It's always wonderful to be in the presence of like-minded people. And so thank you for allowing me to share some of my work with you. Let's see. Okay. So as Lorna said, my name is Emilee Weaver, and I'm the Therapeutic Horticulture Program Manager for the North. A little fun fact about North Carolina is that North Carolina and South Carolina are the only place in the world where the Venus flytrap is native. So if you ever have a chance to get into our neck of the woods and visit North Carolina, you have a personal invitation from me to visit our beautiful conservation garden and see our world-class carnivorous plant collection. So just a little plug there. A little bit about me, experience in education. As Lorna said, I've been a professional horticulturist for many years. Formalized education in social work and a certificate in horticultural therapy from the Horticultural Therapy Institute. I think I see Rebecca in audience. So I've been practicing horticultural therapy and therapeutic horticulture for about 16 years now. In 2019, I was lucky enough to participate in writing a chapter in the Profession and Practice of Horticultural Therapy. It's one of the more comprehensive textbooks for horticultural therapy. So if you haven't gotten a chance to read it, I highly recommend that you check it out as a resource. So today we're going to be talking about 3 different horticultural therapy programs, all of which I took 3 very different approaches to. The first will be in Denver Botanic Gardens in Colorado. This was a horticultural therapy program that was actually a veteran reintegration program. It worked with military veterans from the Iraq-Afghanistan War. The second program that we'll discuss will be Central Regional Hospital in North Carolina. This was a 400-bed psychiatric hospital that provided long-term inpatient care for people with severe and persistent mental illness. And the third is all the way over in Ukraine, Forest Glade Hospital, which is a military rehabilitation hospital. They provide short and long-term physical and psychological care. And as we all know, they are located in a war zone. So it brings a whole different set of challenges and opportunities. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The one theme that unifies all 3 of these programs is trauma. And as most of us know, trauma never just lives in a little bubble like this. It's got a lot of pesky friends. And these friends aren't the types of friends that your mom wants you hanging out with. We've got depression, anxiety, anger, fear, shame, and grief, something that I find that enough of grief. And research says that 70% of the adults in the United States have experienced some form of trauma. The thing about these three programs that I just mentioned is that 100% of the participants have experienced significant trauma. And this is why I have focused so much of my attention and my thought on thinking about trauma and how to address it and taking a little bit of a different approach to it, of which I find horticultural therapy is an excellent way to do that. Traditional treatment modalities, they focus quite a bit on helping participants identify and cope with the symptoms that are listed on the screen. And that's amazing. That's absolutely needed. But what about when we start to think about where we're going in our life, what health looks like, where we want to be after trauma? And this is an opportunity for us to use nature as an example. There's lots of examples and metaphors in nature about how trauma can inspire growth. And in the description of this seminar, you saw that I use the example of a forest fire devouring land and making room for a new life. That's one example. And this example that you see on the screen, rejuvenation pruning, you can see in the left picture, a hedgerow that has been devastated by pests, insects that have defoliated the shrubs and rendered it quite unhealthy and needing assistance. And in the center, you can see that sometimes we have to take something that has gone through trauma and we have to do a pretty severe pruning in order to encourage new growth. Because on the right-hand picture, you can see that sometimes, even though when you can't imagine that the sticks, the bare branches that you see in the center of the screen could ever result in life and new growth, it's hard to have that hope. But on the right-hand side, you see that the shrubs are actually perhaps healthier than when they began in that state of trauma. And so we can, there's so many different examples like this that we can use from nature. And this is a great example of a visual way that we can discuss abstract clinical concepts, such as post-traumatic growth. So post-traumatic growth is a strengths-based perspective that places emphasis on the things that someone can gain as a result of trauma, rather than all that has been taken away. So some of the domains of growth that are possible within this concept are spiritual development, new possibilities in life, greater appreciation for life, closer relationships. I can't tell you how many times I've had horticultural therapy participants say, if it hadn't been for my car accident or my stroke or my time in the war, I never would have realized how much my friends and family loved me and how much I could count on them. And so in that sense, the trauma was actually a catalyst for them to have a completely different perspective on their life. And then finally, personal strength. And some would also pair resilience with this domain, where we, when we learn how to get through trauma, it kind of strengthens our muscles. And the next time a trauma occurs, we have some better tools to get through it. So nature is great at facilitating post-traumatic growth. And that's because nature is a learning environment. It's a place for us to interface and experiment with ideas. So it's a physical location where we can do this. So it provides opportunities to practice new skills. So it could be learning how to work with a new limb amputation, or the cognitive effects of a brain injury. And so in nature, we can start to experiment with these and see where we stand and see where we still have room to grow. Nature's forgiving of mistakes. It's regenerative. So if you have a spastic hand muscle and you can't, and you accidentally cut a branch off, it will regenerate and it will be okay. And that gives us more room to grow and to explore. It provides room and space to dream and explore. I think that's the biggest piece of the learning environment. In this busy world, so few of us take time to just slow down and leave room for healing. And so nature provides this. Nature is a silent witness. This is probably my favorite part of nature. It listens without judgment or solutions. It bears witness to our pain and our grief. And it doesn't compete with our internal voice or our personal experience of grief. What's so interesting too is that is so not human is that reciprocity is never requested or demanded. It's a free gift that nature gives us, is that silent witness, that entity that's kind of accompanying us on a journey. And finally, nature is a mentor. And unlike, very similar to human mentors, mentors never demand that their students take the journey that they took. They accompany their students on the student's journey, and they provide opportunity for meaningful active and passive engagement in the learning process. They provide metaphors that interpret and illuminate human experiences, and they lead by example. And what the student wants to take, they take, and what they want to leave, they leave. And in this sense, nature is is a place where we can be vulnerable, and it's a place as a result that we can learn and ultimately heal. And this is why I see therapeutic horticulture as a gateway. It's a intervention that provides a threshold for people to actively walk through. And on the other side of the threshold is that beautiful, safe learning environment, the witness and the mentor. And so those who have trauma have the choice that they can walk through this particular threshold, and it facilitates healing. And so as we move forward and I start going through the 3 programs I mentioned earlier, I want you to kind of hold on to this concept of post-traumatic growth, and that healing doesn't always have to be kind of hit right on the head with the same clinical perspectives and approaches that traditional modalities take. They can actually, the same results can occur by providing this active learning environment and opportunity for healing. So we'll start off with the Denver Botanic Gardens at Chatfield. So as you can see in the image, this garden is set in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. So it's about 7,000 feet above sea level. And I accepted a position at Denver Botanic Gardens as a senior horticulturist, and I was tasked with basically developing a 750-acre plot of land and figuring out how to draw the community down to this land and engage them in some way. So, of course, with my experience in horticultural therapy, I said, I want to create a horticultural therapy program on this land. And so we did just that, and invited veterans who were returning from the Iraq-Afghanistan war to heal on this land with us. So one of the things that we engaged the veterans with was working on this 5-acre CSA farm. For those of you who don't know what a CSA is, it's basically when you grow vegetables and then you divide them into equal portions, and then you sell those shares to the community who have purchased them. And so the veterans actively participated in growing, maintaining, and then actually distributing the produce to the community. They also learned garden installation and maintenance skills, basic horticulture skills. A visitor center had just been built on the property. And as you can see, the before and after pictures, it was a pretty remarkable difference. A lot of pride that the vets felt after that. So a little bit more of an opportunity to deal with the ornamental side of things rather than the agricultural. And then they also got to work on special projects, which for me was a real joy. This was a garden, about an acre and a half garden that I was lucky enough to get to design. And it's lavender production fields with, I think there was 22 different varieties, and a 40-foot wide labyrinth, which people could use to, to meditate, to walk, to find peace. And after I actually left this program in 2015, they started a lavender festival as a result of this. And the veterans had put all their work into it. Just recently, I was looking on the Denver Botanic Gardens website and saw a video of one of the veterans, the program's still operating. One of the female veterans, she actually harvests a lot of this lavender, and she makes value-added products for her own personal business. So it was a transformation of this special project that I had never anticipated, and it was gratifying to see. The veterans also helped us with special events. This is the pumpkin festival that we did each year. Up in the top right was the Blooms of Light, where the Christmas lights in the winter, where the community would be engaged. And even though this wasn't hands-on work directly with plants for the vets, they did amazing logistical work for us during these events. They ushered the community in, they helped park the cars, they provided a higher level of safety for all of us with that many people in one place. So it was a really special way to engage them, and they got to interact with the community quite a bit. So we had really taken a three-pronged approach. We were actively teaching them the farming, the horticulture skills, so the basics like soil health and weeding and plant ID. But we also offered vocational skills, so workshops on resume writing and transforming their military resume into a civilian resume, which so many of them struggled with. They really needed some assistance with that. They've never been in an interview, most of them, because they, went into the military right out of high school. And so we gave them the opportunity to learn these skills. And then finally, as I mentioned, we offered them community engagement opportunities. This was farm dinners where they can invite their family, distributing the crops directly to the recipients of the food, guest speakers. One was, they really wanted to learn how to small talk. They felt like being in the military, they never learned how to small talk like the average civilian person. And so we listened to what they needed and brought them in. And so what the growth points were was, as you can see, there's not really a whole lot of therapeutic clinical training up above there necessarily. And we started off offering that actually, but they did not want to participate in that because they voiced that they that wasn't a way that they wanted to engage in their lives at that moment. They didn't want to be hit right on the head with that therapeutic approach. And so we went to the three-pronged approach, and we found that the outcomes were still basically all the same. They had the opportunity to gain psychosocial skills that are appropriate for the civilian world. We were able to connect them with resources. Some of the vets said, I can't pay my rent this month. And as a result of the rapport that we had built with them, we were able to connect them with the resources they needed. And then perhaps most importantly, they felt an increased sense of belonging to the civilian world, which I think a lot of them didn't know whether they had a place or what their place was in that world. And finally, the veteran community, as they had been immersed in military culture. And now all of a sudden they had no veterans, no other military folks around them, and they were very lonely for that companionship. And so this program also provided that. Moving on to Central Regional Hospital. And when I was in this position, I actually worked for the Community Transition Department. It's called the Community Living Program. And in order to be admitted into this hospital, you have to be deemed a danger to yourself or others. So obviously the folks who come here are in pretty pretty difficult times in their lives. Someone could say that just the experience of being involuntarily committed to a hospital itself is legitimate trauma. To give you a little bit of a perspective, this is an image of the hospital, and let's see here. I just have to. Oh, I'm sorry about that. You can see that where the big S, D, and T are, this was sunflower, dogwood, and tulip courtyard. They were named after plants before I got there. And it was really neat because a lot of the patients, were diagnosed with schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, things where psychosis was pretty prevalent. And so there was actually images of a sunflower on the floor outside of the courtyard to orient the patients, to where they physically were in the hospital. And that was really helpful. These were courtyards that were surrounded by 4 walls, but open to the sky. And these 3 locations were really the only place that these patients got to be outside. And some of the patients stay there for their entire lives. When I got there, the courtyards were basically devoid of life. It was basically some weeds and some cement pathways, sidewalks. And so I set out to start some programming there that would bring a little more life to the hospital. So what we did with the courtyards was we created a vocational horticultural therapy crew. They worked Monday through Friday. And they basically helped me turn those empty courtyards into the Garden of Eden. Well, some patients even said that. I feel like I'm walking into the Garden of Eden. And I said, it was always great because it was such a profound change from what it had been. These patients actually got paid to do this vocational work. So they were able to build up a little nest egg so that when they left the hospital, they would have something to start with. We also provided 3 treatment groups per day that were horticultural therapy treatment groups. And these were partially in classrooms. And then we could also use the courtyards as learning environments. That was 2 of the programs. And then we also went to the geriatric unit because it was easier for mobility reasons to go to them. And they highly enjoyed the programming as well. So we were able to serve 54 patients in one day, 5 days a week. So pretty amazing. This is an image of Tulip Courtyard. I just wanted to give you a visual of what these patients were able to achieve. Isn't this incredible? The sunflower courtyard. You can see why it's called sunflower. They had designed these circular gardens that look like sunflowers, and you can see what it started at, and you can see what it ended up being. The far circle garden and center is actually a 12, 13-foot tall canna. So to give you perspective of how awe-inspiring this is, it was pretty significant. And the staff were just as enthralled with the developments as the patients were. Over across the street, there was this old brick building that we also used. It was an old army barracks, a 1950s army barracks. And we had vegetable gardens out there that we managed all year long. This is where the other 2 vocational horticultural therapy crews worked. We had a perennial and shrub nursery. Look how amazingly they kept that organized and so tidy. They propagated a lot of the plants themselves. We composted, and these were eventually used for plant sales, which I'll get to. And then we also had an indoor horticulture ward. And as I mentioned, the building was not meant for growing. And so we grew a lot of low light plants and utilized light benches when we needed to for the higher light plants. And we took the indoor plants and the outdoor plants, and we would have plant sales. So here's just some images. The top left sale, just on those 3 6-foot long tables, we could make $2,000 to $3,000 in one sale, just in a matter of hours. Down on the bottom left was a spring plant sale, and you can't see the whole sale. It goes over to the right a little bit more, but we were able to make $8,000 in one spring sale based on all of this. And most all of it was profit because we had propagated almost all of it. At the sales, we also sold value-added products, handmade paper with flower petals, pressed flower cards, herbal blends and ornaments. And down on the bottom left, not sure if everybody has seen those before, Job's tears. If you pull out the little filament of that seed, it's a perfect bead and they're beautiful. And so the patients, we harvested plants all year long so that in the winter and the colder months, we could create these value-added products that were literally almost all profit. The growth points for this program was physical exercise, which was a huge thing for people who are institutionalized in a hospital and can't really move around as much as they would want to. Increased sense of belonging, worth, and value in their community. The horticulture crews were the pride of the hospital. And a lot of these folks had been homeless at one point in their life, so they had been treated as less than human. And to have the pride of saying, yes, this is what I did, was absolutely amazing to see. Access to adaptive tools and techniques. All of these, a lot of them had never been taught how to work with the impairments that they might have had and work through them. A safe location to practice the psychosocial skills that they were learning in so many other treatment groups during the day. So instead of us directly teaching psychosocial skills, we gave them the active place to practice those skills and have a lot of fun in the meantime. And obviously vocational skills and a respite from the institutionalized environment. They'd come out and they'd take a big breath of air and you could just see the joy on their faces. And best of all of these skills were transferable to community living so that when they were discharged, they had more leaving than what they came in with. And finally, last but not least, the Forest Glade Hospital in Ukraine. The red star on the map is approximately where the hospital is located. And as I mentioned before, it's a rehabilitation hospital for veterans. A lot of the veterans who are at this hospital are there for a very short stay. They may have been injured on the front lines and they are brought here to rehabilitate, and then a lot of them go straight back to the front lines. So this is a much quicker turnover than Central Regional Hospital on the last example. And you may wonder, how in the world did a little public garden in North Carolina come into contact with a veterans hospital in Ukraine? Well, this is why. Because North Carolina Botanical Garden offers an online certificate in therapeutic horticulture. This program is actually a collaboration between the North Carolina State University and our garden. And it involves a total of 4 courses, all of which are 6 weeks long. They're 100% online, and you have 24 access to the content. It's 100% asynchronous, so there's never a time when you have to meet live. So this kind of helps build in flexibility for those who work full-time, have families, need some flexibility with learning, and also if you live in a different time zone. Many of you who are on this seminar may benefit from that. So far, we've had students from 29 different states and 8 different countries. So we mainly cater to students who are allied professionals, people who already have training in a lot of other great fields like social work, psychology, occupational therapy, teachers, landscape designers, all people who would really benefit from integrating therapeutic horticulture as an intervention with their existing profession. So, at the end of this presentation, you'll see a link, and I think there'll be one in the comments as well. If you want to check this out, you are more than welcome to join us if you would like to partake in this. But in terms of Forest Glade Hospital, they saw this opportunity and they asked us if it would be possible to translate this into Ukrainian so that their service providers could so that they could become trained in therapeutic horticulture and offer the services to their veteran patients. Through discussions, we are trying to find ways to do this, and I think we're on the right track. And in the meantime, we're also discussing if we are able to get some people trained over there, what would a program look like? So just a couple images. This is where Forest Glade is located. Gorgeous forest. A river runs right through the property. It's inside, plenty of room to grow. Lots of spaces for lots of beautiful plants. I'm hoping that we can get in there even more. They do have a greenhouse. As of yet, I don't think it's climate controlled, unfortunately. And with the Ukrainian climate, really is necessary if you want to extend the season more. Definitely open if anybody out there has any ideas about funding or resources that we could use to speed this project up and amplify its effects with the veteran participants. That would be amazing. Feel free to reach out to me. But they are kind of working on utilizing this as much as they can now. And some of the program concepts we're suggesting through time as funding becomes available are some pretty standard things that you guys probably use in your own programs. Using the greenhouse to grow plants and also vegetable starts for vegetable gardens. So that the vegetables can be eaten by the hospital, by the families, perhaps even donated or sold to the community. Nursery plants, perennials, and shrubs so that they can beautify their own grounds, make beautiful gardens around seating areas that will encourage veterans to come out and socialize with each other and be outside more. Cut flower gardens, you can't underestimate the power of beauty. And having a bouquet that's freshly cut, brought into the garden, brought into the hospital, into a person's room, given as a gift to a family member, can make all the difference in the world to a person. I know it can with me. And because of the climate in Ukraine and needing to ensure that there's year-round work for participants, one of the biggest recommendations we're making is an indoor propagation workroom where the veterans would propagate plants, and for the purpose of starting a plant maintenance crew where all of the seating areas and eating areas and any areas that there's going to be a large number of people, especially, that there will be plants present, because research shows us that even just passive engagement and viewing plants is healing. You don't even have to actively engage. So with these two programs, not only would there be a group of veterans who would actively engage, but they would also be beautifying and creating access to plants, all of the veterans who are in the hospital as well as staff. What are the growth points of this program? It has yet to be determined. We will determine that when we decide on exactly what kind of programs we're able to do, which I hope we will learn and discover this soon and find the resources that we need to make this amazing project available, because I know I can speak for myself and for North Carolina Botanical Garden that we stand in unity with the struggles that Ukraine is going through right now, and the people and the effects, the traumatic effects of this war, and we hope we can be of help. So with that, here's the link that I mentioned before about where you can find more about our therapeutic horticulture certificate program. My contact information, if you have any ideas, resources, opportunities to collaborate, you can always reach out to me. And I guess we can open it up to questions when you're ready.
Thanks, Emilee. That was fantastic. Fiona's also put the link to the programme in the chat for MD that wants to take a look, and we'll also put it in the follow-up email for everyone as well. So I'm going to hand over to Karen for the question and answer. So if anybody wants to raise their hand and voice a question or pop their question in the chat, go ahead. Over to you, Karen.
Hello, I'm Crane, and welcome. That was amazing. What amazing work that you're doing, Emilee.
Thank you.
Has anyone got any questions that they'd like to ask? They can post them on the side, or they can just raise a hand. Fiona. Fiona?
Me again. Yes, me again. Sorry, I just thought I'd start the ball rolling since no one else has got a question just now. I just wondered, Emilee, if you could tell us a little bit more about the projects you do with community groups that you do there in Colorado at the Botanics, because you were trying to cover such a vast number of different roles that you've played and give us such a big overview. You didn't really have time to go into the detail, and it was fantastic. It was you have such a great philosophical approach, grounded in theory, but it's clear that you've done a huge number of therapeutic hours with lots of different groups. So it's just great to hear about that. It's so clear and so well thought out, and we can see the therapeutic progression and how it would work. But it'd be good to hear some more detail of the sort of people you've been working with in the community, and what are the results for them, and what do you see happening?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, happy to share. So at the North Carolina Botanical Garden, the direct service that we offer right now is really with two different populations. This has changed a lot because of COVID. We had more programs prior to COVID, which we had to pause, as I'm sure many of you had to as well. And we're trying to build up our direct service offerings at this point. And so the one most longstanding relationship we have built is with the farm at Penny Lane. This is a collaboration between another department and the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, which is the university that the garden is part of. And this is the, make sure I get it right, the Center for Excellence in Community Mental Health department. And they created a farm. It's basically a model for others to be able to take a look at and see as an example of how to handle issues that individuals who have persistent and severe mental illness have in the community. And so they offer, they have vegetables that are being grown on, I think, an acre or two. They offer cooking classes and all kinds of different services that are just that are amazing. And each week we go and we provide therapeutic horticulture programming at that farm and work with folks who have identified mental health concerns in their lives. And we grow vegetables, we teach them how to do that. We also work towards their personal goals that they establish for themselves at each session. And it's a pretty rewarding partnership that works out well. They're actually just about to build a tiny home village on the property so that folks who have severe and persistent mental health concerns can have a safe and stable place to live and to engage in their treatment without fearing housing instability. So that's one of the things that we offer right now. And the other are two senior assisted living communities. One is kind of the general population, the other is a memory care unit, and the other is a rehab unit. So much different programming offered for all three of those groups, but currently we go to them and we provide 1 hour long sessions several times a month and do activities, obviously, that kind of match with the seasons and holidays and provide meaningful engagement opportunities for them in that sense.
Thank you, Emilee. Emilee, a woman called Nadia Logner has asked, she says, thank you, Emilee. And she said, Mr. Christian, I don't know how to pronounce the name, Werschutz, a correspondent of the Austrian television in Ukraine, is interested to report about your project in Ukraine. And do you think that the project is also in a status of development? He should report about it.
Mm. I didn't catch the very last part of that. It clipped out just a bit.
So do you think that the project is also in a status of development that he should report about it? Then could he report about it now, I suppose?
Yeah, I think we're at a point where we have a lot more vision about where we're headed, and we're also in the fundraising stage. So we have some interest from Pact Ukraine, who have kind of partnered with us a little bit, and we're Andreas, he's from Germany. He's doing a seminar for this series as well. He's been an amazing person to connect us with lots of resources in Ukraine. So I do think we have a vision for it and we're moving forward, but could always use more help with getting awareness and finding collaborative opportunities and funding.
So maybe Nadia can give you her email, or maybe she could post it on the side.
Absolutely, I'd love that.
Larissa Devastation, she wants to ask you a question.
Yeah, there was something in the beginning that you didn't get a lot into, but that really sparked my interest. The carnivore plants garden. Can you tell us more about it? What is its purpose, and who? Yeah,
Yeah.
the most who benefits from it the most?
Yeah, so we don't do any therapeutic horticulture programming around the carnivorous plants at this time. It is a huge part, because we're a conservation garden, it's more of a display to show the range of carnivorous plants that are located in our state and our region. So, and they're just about to bloom pretty soon. I'm so excited. You wouldn't think a carnivorous plant would be so gorgeous when it blooms, but I've got, if you want pictures, reach out to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, right now it's more of a display, and I think we use it for children's programming, education, and things like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
We've got another question from Captain Montebello, and he says, when you start out on a project like the Denver Vets, do you have a clear outcome in mind, and how do you develop an overall aim?
That's great. Start with the participants. I made some assumptions. It was earlier in my career, and I made some assumptions about what veterans needed when I started. And my brother's a veteran, so I had and several of my family members. So I felt like I had a good sense. A lot of people were talking about post-traumatic stress disorder and things like that. And so I made the assumption that that's what they would need. And so I started a program that targeted all of those assumptions. And what it turned out being is just me standing at the farm alone. And so I quickly learned that reaching out to community stakeholders and partners was going to be crucial. Build relationships with the people who are actively providing services and had relationship with the veterans already, so that they could refer them to the program. And then once a few people started showing up, I was able to ask them and say, what do you need? What do you want to work on? What do you think about my marketing? What are the vocabulary I'm using? That was a huge piece of it. Once we refined the vocabulary in the marketing, and like I mentioned in the program, in the presentation, kind of scaled back on the therapeutic language, we had people coming in constantly. And like I said, it wasn't as important for me to let them know that this was a therapeutic program as much as it was to build that relationship that otherwise would never have been there. So moving forward, as I've consulted and worked on other projects, I've definitely gone straight to the source instantly and asked people what they need and not made assumptions about the community. So I hope that addresses the outcomes piece. The outcomes that I intend are what the participant intends.
Thank you. And Von Daniela is asking if it's possible to support you with seeds in Ukraine. Would you like seeds?
We will take anything that you have to give. I'm sure that they could be used, especially if they're appropriate to the climate, especially. Right now there's nobody in place to be able to perform the programming. And because of the quick overturn, the nature of the hospital itself, some people may only stay there for a few weeks. It is hard to maintain that level of consistency once seeds or plants are started, to maintain that through time. But hopefully, if things go as we plan, we'll have that consistency, and then we could utilize those seeds. Yeah, thank you.
And I don't know how she would get those seeds over to you, but again, maybe she can send you an email or
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
check with it.
absolutely.
There's a few more questions popping up. Is there a specific time that the veterans stay at the Denver program, and can they re-enter the program at any point?
I can't speak to it at this point, since it's been many years since I've been there. It has transitioned a little bit, but has become even more stable in other ways. When I was there, they were there usually for a 6-month long term, which was kind of the growing season in the Denver area. So they would stay for 6 months, and they would come usually 2 to 3 times a week to the farm. We never had, I'm trying to think, some of the veterans just maintained contact. They stayed through the program, even though they had completed it, they kind of restarted it. So I guess you could say that they re-entered. I would say that they never left, because it became such an amazing community for them that they kind of took on different, some of them got hired at the farm as full-time employees. Some started working as leaders for the veteran program themselves. Others, broke off and used the skills to start their own companies. So yeah, I would say that you can't re-enter when you haven't truly left.
Someone's asking if you've got a favorite spot in the Colorado Botanic Garden.
Right. Oh, well, there was this little spot down behind the children's garden. If you ever go down there, you've got to just walk the whole property. It's well worth it. There was this little cutout right by this creek, and there was a tree, I think it was a cottonwood, that had kind of slightly fallen over, and it had a branch that was as thick as my waist. And it hung out over, and it kind of enclosed it so that when you were there, you almost felt like you were in a womb. And you could sit there and listen to the water trickle. And a lot of the times, that's where I would actually hold when we would group the veterans up and talk about how they were liking the program and how they were doing personally with everything. We would meet there so that there would be a more insular, safe feel. So that's probably my favorite, even though it's not the most glorious, bloomiferous place on the property.
Someone else actually just saying, Lynn Bardell, she's saying that for your information, seeds cannot be sent outside the UK without relevant plant passport and licenses.
That's right.
So I don't know how that works for people to send stuff out. I wanted to ask a question. How do you deal with everything that you get given from people, when you're working with everyone and the trauma that they're going through? How do you recuperate?
That's a great question. I think partially my social work training, you learn self-care, and you learn that as much as possible, you try not to take on what other people are going through. But I just think that my philosophy of accompaniment is what saves my heart. I'm not there there's no hierarchy with this field. You're working shoulder to shoulder. I always say that, shoulder to shoulder. I'm equal to you. And so when I'm equal to you, I don't need anything from you. I'm not here to get something from you. I am here to accompany you along the journey that you are on. And so when you take it from that stance, there's nothing to be disappointed about. There's nothing, like, you just are, you're there. And so when I go home, I know that when I go back, I will accompany them once again, and I'll be there for them as much as I can. And I guess that gives me the peace that I need to let it go when I go home, and know that I did the best that I could do, and that nature did the best that it could do as well. And I really trust in the healing powers of nature. And if I can facilitate that, even on a very passive level, then I've fulfilled my role in life.
And someone else has, thank you. Someone else has also said that when you work within horticultural therapy, you're also fed and renewed by being around as well as cultivating the plants. So it's like what you're saying. Yeah.
Absolutely. That is such a great, yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up. Yes, it really is regenerative, emotionally as well. Yeah, very well put.
Does anyone, I'm not sure about our time, if we have enough time for any more questions.
I
Anyone?
think we're just about ready to wind up if there are no more questions.
Okay.
Excuse me. So thank you very much, Emilee. Could we